Today, there's a reason the Ukrainian main intelligence directorate devoted precious resources, a surveillance drone, a high-mobility artillery rocket system, and at least 2 attack drones to a coordinated effort to track and strike a 2-man Russian drone team. As Russia's wider war on Ukraine grinds into its 4th year and resource-fixated U.S. presence, Donald Trump threatens to nudge the politics of the conflict in Russia's favor. The Ukrainians are fighting to preserve their most important battlefield edge, their advantage in drones. The overwhelming strike on the Russian Orlan drone team, somewhere in southern Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia Oblast recently, began with a Ukrainian Shark surveillance drone patrolling a snowy dirt road somewhere on the Russian side of the front line in the Oblast. It spotted a solitary civilian-style truck and followed it after losing more than 15,000 purpose-made military vehicles. Russian forces increasingly travel and even attack in civilian cars, trucks, and vans. The Ukrainian drone team's curiosity paid off. The Russian truck parked, and 2 Russians piled out, carrying an Orlan surveillance drone between them. The Orlan is one of the Russian armed forces' primary surveillance drones. Determined to destroy the Orlan and its launch team before the drone could contribute to Russian surveillance of the front line, the Ukrainian Intelligence Directorate rang up the Ukrainian army and requested assistance from one of the army's American-made HIMARS launchers. Responding quickly, note that the Orlan team was still setting up its drone for launch. The HIMARS fired what appeared to be an M30 rocket from potentially scores of miles away. The cheerful cluster munition, as the Intelligence Directorate described it, exploded above the Russian drone team, peppering the ground below with lethal fragments. And the Russian operators apparently died or fled, as they were nowhere to be found as the next Ukrainian munition. While an explosive first-person view drone arrived, the FPV flew through the open back hatch of the truck, blowing up the vehicle. A second FPV drone struck the now abandoned Orlan. The battle for freedom continues. The Intelligence Directorate crowed. But that battle is getting harder for the Ukrainians. Desperate to match Ukraine's all-seeing, all-striking drones, but struggling to overcome Ukrainian radio jamming, Russian forces are deploying more fiber optic drones that, controlled via long, thin cables rather than radio, are unjammable. To suppress Russian drone teams and preserve their drone edge, the Ukrainians are doubling down on a strategy the U.S. military pioneered in its campaign against insurgent bomb makers in Iraq and Afghanistan more than a decade ago. They're trying to get left of the boom and hit the Russian operators before they launch their drones. But the rightward lurch in U.S. domestic politics threatens the Ukrainian strategy. Trump is pressing Ukraine to give the United States half of Ukraine's rare earth minerals, valued at hundreds of billions of dollars, as payment for past U.S. aid to Ukraine, which has included dozens of HIMARS launchers and thousands of rockets for them. Worse, Trump has hinted that he may withhold future aid unless Ukraine agrees to the mineral extortion. "We have to get something," Trump said, ignoring the obvious benefits of U.S. support for a democracy battling an authoritarian aggressor. "We can't continue to pay this money."
Armata!
In expending a rocket it may not be able to replace in order to strike that Russian Orlan team, the Ukrainian Intelligence Directorate underscored how important it was to hit the team. But as Trump's demands escalate, there may soon come a time when Ukraine runs out of some of the weapons it currently uses to suppress Russian drones and thus maintain its own drone advantage. At the same time, Ukrainian forces liberated the village of Pishchain in the Pokrovsk sector, halted Russia's advance, and pushed back enemy troops, inflicting significant losses, according to a Ukrainian Armed Forces AFU spokesperson. Viktor Tregubov, spokesperson for the Khortytsia Operational Strategic Grouping of Troops, OSU Khortytsia, announced the battlefield victory on Sunday, February 16. The liberation of Pishchany has already been reported, and we can now confirm it on the Kyiv 24 TV channel. Tregubov stated the village is located about 5 kilometers south of Pokrovsk. Russian troops have also been pushed back from several other nearby settlements. He noted that the situation on the front line is changing rapidly, and there are signs of a slight shift in the enemy's actions. But it seems that in the Pokrovsk sector, a certain turning point has occurred, albeit cautiously speaking. At least, this can now be stated regarding President Zelensky, and Tregubov said Russian forces had serious intentions in the Pokrovsk sector, but suffered significant losses. While their offensive has been partially halted this month, and in some settlements, Russian troops have been pushed back, Tregubov also remarked that this progress was due to the effective use of drones and the coordinated efforts of various Ukrainian military units. The successes of Kyiv's forces were a setback for Kremlin tactics that have employed relentless firepower and often accepted massive losses in men and equipment in its attempts to gain ground. Russian mill bloggers on Tuesday confirmed Ukrainian troops in the Pokrovsk sector, the epicenter of a grinding Kremlin offensive since early 2024, advanced more than a kilometer, 1,100 yards, on an 8-kilometer, 5-mile wide front to break into the Russian-held village of Pishchany in the Donetsk region. Video published by the 425th Separate Assault Regiment Skala, deployed to the Pokrovsk sector, showed its infantry supported by bomber drones pushing through the village of Pishchany and rooting out Russian troops in a night attack. The geo-located images showed careful tactics and the liberal use of grenades by Ukrainian assault troops. A Skala statement claimed 2 Russian soldiers were taken prisoner, with pro-Moscow mill bloggers confirming the loss of the village. Unconfirmed reports said AFU units had also taken 2 villages adjacent to Pishchana-Dachenske, Vodyany Druhi, where Ukrainian infantry was reported to be digging in. Meanwhile, the AFU lost control of Pishchana, a strategically important settlement controlling supply routes to the city of Pokrovsk on January 7 to 9, following waves of Russian attacks, the geolocation tracking group Deep State reported on Wednesday. The AFU General Staff made no direct comment on the control of Pishchany in its daily situation update.
Выстрел!